My name is Andrew Keene. I serve as Vice Chair of Finance of the Board of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, and it is an honor to be here with you to give an update as to what is happening in Israel right now. And before we jump in, I'm currently in New York City. Just a few hours ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu met with President Biden, and one of the things that he said that it is, one thing is for certain, and that is my commitment to democracy. But what we all know from the last year is that the current situation in Israel is a move away towards democratic values, not towards it. And the response around the world, for sure in Israel, but in cities around the world, and many of you have been part of it, is this overwhelming show of strength and support in support of Israeli democracy and in defense of Israeli democracy. And we are still letting people in from the waiting room. Really glad that you could take some time out of your schedule, especially in the week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, to hear about what is happening on the ground in Israel, but also how Reform, progressive, liberal Jews around the world can be involved in this really important and critical moment in Israel's history. I'm going to turn it over, although I don't think he's here quite yet, so maybe we'll come back to him in a second. I'll give thanks to him, even though he's not here, to Ben Rabinowitz, who is a founder and managing partner of Amity, which is a venture capital firm in Israel, who's been very involved in the protest movement, especially on behalf of the tech community, and really helped us pull this call together with such short notice. So I don't see him quite yet, but we'll give him some time to address everyone in a bit. In the meantime, I'll turn it over to Rabbi Sergio Bergman to give us some framing and some thoughts, and then jump in with our guest of honor, Shikma Bressler.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Kumar Khatima to everyone. This is a very special moment, not only in our Jewish year, in our Jewish history, challenging by the situation in Israel. And for us, it's a big, big honor to have the opportunity to share with Professor Shikma Bressler, one of the foremost leaders of the protest movement in Israel, his reflection, vision, and the role model that the leadership bring to us, to make a clear distinction between the state of Israel that we stand by and the government of Israel in this challenging time. For us, the experience that so many of our leaders, we went visit Israel, we participate in the protests on the streets, and we feel that Israel is awakening and is really on the struggle, aligned with our progressive Jewish values. And this is for us a big opportunity to say that, Shikma, you are not alone. We are all of us committed to understand exactly what's happened there, to be useful to this struggle and to be partners, because Israel is so central to all the Jewish people and so important to all of us that we don't really want to left only in Israeli hands. This is Jewish hands. We are Kol Arevim, Israel, Seva Seva. We are part of the same family, and this is the time between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur that we are doing our teshuvah. And one part of our teshuvah means to be committed to Israel and to really show up that progressive Zionism means something very concrete, and that we are praying also with our feet around the streets, around all Israel, around all the cities, standing by all of you. Thank you so, so much for this opportunity. The webinar will be recorded and we will share it after that. And also every question that you will have after the presentation of Shikma will be on the chat, and please share with us your questions. We don't have the opportunity to have a lot of speakers on the webinar. We have only one, that is Shikma, but every question that you have to raise, please share with us on the chat. Sorry, Shikma.
Yeah, so first, thank you, all of you, for, for caring. It may sound trivial, but it's not trivial at all. For me personally, I guess for Israelis as well. And thank you also for this, introduction, which actually I can start from so many different angles. But let me maybe say a couple of more general things about the way that at least I see the situation that we are facing and how I think it may be related to Jewish communities worldwide, because I actually see it as an amazing opportunity, provided that we will win the current battle and that we pick up the right track on this historical crossroad, I would say. But first of all, let me first start by saying that the what is happening in Israel is happened before in many different places in the world. So this transition from democracies into some sort of tyrannies within law, as it was defined by Kim Lane Shapley from Stanford, I think, is not, I mean, we did not invent anything here. It happened in Hungary, it happened in Poland. And the entire historical process is really, it's amazingly identical. I was first out protesting in the first COVID lockdown in 2020, when Netanyahu locked down courts just a couple of days before his trial was supposed to start. We were back then after the third election in a row with no elected government, with no operational parliament, so no parliament committees to supervise decision-making by the non-elected government, and no courts at all during this crazy days of lockdowns and decision-making. So we felt that we don't know what the plans of our government. We certainly knew that Netanyahu may have hidden motivation, not that hidden, but other motivations. And we felt that if they want to change completely the constitutional structure of Israel, then the track is basically open. And it was the first time in my entire life that I went out protesting based on very basic knowledge of, what democracy is and how democracies fall, things I learned when I was 18, high school. And what happened to me, and I'm telling you that because what happened back then, I went out shouting "Demokratia," as you hear everywhere today. This was, a call that I first shouted already then, because we were concerned for our democracy. And after a week or so, I realized that I don't really know what I'm talking about. So it's nice to shout democracy, but if I want to stay and stand and talk to people and explain to people, I need to know more. And I was lucky to have a friend who is an expert in this from the Hebrew University, who is an expert in that. And I gave her a call, and then myself and my brother asked her, okay, please explain us what is democracy? Why do we feel that something is so wrong? And as part of this conversation, we asked her, okay, so if you want to explain the risk or the threat to the people, then let's draw like a timeline of what was happening in Israel in the last couple of years, why it is so degrading the level of democracy in Israel, and what are the concerns for the future. And we made this timeline. She listed for us different laws that have been passed. And the crazy thing to me is that everything, and then she also, listed what we should expect will happen in the coming years, and everything that is happening in Israel, all the law that they have placed on the Knesset desk, they were written already there. And I'm telling you that because, she is super smart, but you don't need to be so smart in order to know what are the plans, because the textbook of how to take a democracy and change it completely for like a empty shell of democracy is very well defined, very well written, and everything that is happening in Israel was clear to the expert long ago. And therefore, when we think about the transition that we are maybe facing and we're trying to prevent here, we need to look at it. Clearly, it is embedded within our special circumstances and within our society and with our own special atmosphere and so on. But the historical move is really identical to what happened in too many places in the world ahead of us. And this is the global way that we need to look at it. So it's not just about stopping one law from being passed. It really is an attempt to make here a global transition into a tyranny within law or something like that. I think this is the translation to English, how we call it in Hebrew. So this is one thing that I wanted to put it's a fight that we are fighting, but it's actually a fight of the entire liberal world, trying to defeat, hopefully, to figure out how to defeat this attack on liberal democratic values worldwide. And I hope that we will manage and we'll figure out how to do it and how to secure and guarantee democratic values and liberal values for for generations to come, and not just for the sake of Israel. And this is one link that I think of what is happening here has to do with the rest of the world and what communities feel worldwide. So this is one thing that I want to say. The other is that I think that also relates to diaspora and so on. I think that we were all, to some extent, felt in the last decade or so that something is going wrong in Israel. We weren't proud of what we were seeing, but we felt like we are, a small minority of people, or becoming a small minority of people who feel uncomfortable with the face of Israel as they are reflected to both to us in Israel and also to the world. And I think that in this respect, we were always we always heard how the young generation of the young generation of Jewish people do not really relate to Israel anymore. I think that to some extent it happened to us as well. We lived here, but we were all focusing on our own business because we didn't feel related to the way that the country appeared to be. So it was cool. We had a very strong army. The high-tech industry was amazing. We had a lot of we could fulfill our wishes and so on. But in terms of values and the face of what was reflecting out as a country, we didn't really like it, but we didn't feel like fighting for it. First, because we didn't realize that we need to, and second, because we didn't know, what is the size of the group of people that feel the way that we feel. And we were also operating without knowing, or without really appreciating to the bottom of it, that we were living in a country where the conversation and the media was very heavily controlled by those who wanted to take us into this transition. And what this protest is showing to us, and I think also reflecting abroad, is that the values of the Israelis, what we believe in, the majority of people here, is actually, most of the people are like us. We are not a minority. The vast majority of Israelis did not like what they see. And we now understand that we also need to fight if we want to fight back, if we want our country to be normal again. And I think that in this respect, it's a good moment to reunite with the communities abroad that didn't like what they see as well. They never went out against, attacking Israel because we all support Israel. We never really criticize the country. We still don't criticize the country, but we do criticize, I think, today the government. And we also criticize, I think, very strongly the fact that that the wrong values have been promoted. It's not just the wrong values, these are not values. So racism, fascism, these are not values. It's not what we share as Jewish people worldwide. In fact, if there is a lesson that our people, our nation should have learned in the past, is that those things are not values, they are not legitimate. And I'm happy to see that the majority of us are not. So I think it's an opportunity to show a different face of Israel, not just to people abroad, but also to us. And this awakening in this respect is really is exciting for us as well. And I think that it motivates us to win, not give up. And maybe the last thing that I wanted to emphasize is that we have not been winning yet. So we are still on this critical crossroad. And as a country, we still need to make sure that we will choose the right direction, which will take us into a bright future with secure liberal democratic values, rather than falling into very dark days the risk, the concern are still there. But if there is a nation who can win this battle, I think it's us, and I think that your help over there, not just in helping as external to the situation, but really as part of the situation, because this is, as I said, it's an international problem, and we, I think, have the luck to be united, to have communities everywhere, and to have a united community. And I think it's an opportunity that we must take, we must embrace. First, because we cannot lose this battle, and second, because it's an opportunity that we must, we must take forward. Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to ask something or to comment. As you said, it's a grassroots organization, by the way. None of the organizations that you see, and there are more than 200 different groups, none of them are following the traditional organizations. So if it's the academia, it's not the standard organization of academia people, but it's something new that emerged out of nowhere by opening WhatsApp groups. And about 90%, I think, of all scientists in Israel is in this group. And likewise, all physicians and the military groups and so on, all grassroots, nothing official, and all work together in an impressive way because of shared values and shared vision, I think.
Thank you, Shikma. We have some comments here on our chat, and we invite everyone that really want to raise some questions to do it on our chat. Michael Colbert is asking how can we donate to keep funding the demonstration? From Peter, what can the Union for Progressive Journalism can do raising our voice to help? And also, Shudi is asking, can you explain how the protest movement distinguish between opposition, a right-wing government, and opposition that is fighting to keep going with democracy? That means how we can make the distinction between values of the system and party in the political arena.
Yeah, so first of all, you asked several things. I don't know if I will remember all of them once I finish answering the first question. So, but I can. The easiest one for donation will send you later. There are several projects. There could be donations for the day-to-day activities of the protest, and there could be donations for other projects like the one that I'm engaged with, which is to create a new generation of leadership to take control over the conversation in Israel, but from leadership direction, not just from influencing direction. Things that we are lacking a new generation of real leaders, not politicians, but people who represents the values that we fight for. We lack them at the moment because the way of our political system has evolved. So there are different routes for donation, and we can share all of them with you. Now, with regarding to the political map, so let me just say, it's a bit okay. So I'll do my best to explain. I think that our political map, the Israeli political map, have been splitted or divided or shaped in the last decade by Netanyahu across a watershed that split the country roughly 50-50. This is not correct anymore, but let's say in the last 5 elections, the country was torn apart basically around the watershed that divide us between us and them. First Israel, second Israel, left and right, even though it has nothing to do with left and right. And what I want to say is that this really fits the narratives that Netanyahu needed in order to promote his coup that we are now seeing with these 225 different laws that draws a completely different Israel than what we have in mind. On the other hand, the protest draw a completely different watershed that divide us between those who want what I will call a normal country with some sort of Democrat liberal values. Maybe people see liberal values a bit in different ways, but in general, they want to, care about their life. They want to live in a country where a kid or a girl, no matter where they're born, have, almost equal opportunities to become my student in one of the days. To those who want something different, those who have fascist idea, racist ideas. And when we look at this watershed, we see that what seemed to be like a 50-50 split on the political map, which, as I said, already changed if you look at the polls recently, then the watershed drawn by the protest, I think roughly split the country about 80% that sits in the normal camp, and 20 right now should be outside of this camp. And if you look at this 80%, then from the, let's say, core question in Israel, like what kind of economy we want and so on, we don't have the same, solution necessarily. We have different opinions. You can see in the protest people who are highly right-wing liberals and those who are, left extremists and people from the central in all of the core question of our society. But we do have in common this desire to live in a normal country. We want to, the decision will be made based on, with democratic concept in mind, and not with a tyranny, not with a dictatorship. Okay. So I think that this is what something that need to be. It's highly political protest, but it's very far from being, one party oriented. This is also a reason why there is not going to be a party that is established based on the protest. We need to have protest representative in about 80% of our parties in Israel, from left to right, from all the political map, and this is what we should be pushing for.
Shikma, we have the question from Peter. What the World Union, this global progressive Jewish organization, can do by raising our voice to help? And also we have from Hans another question: to what extent are the liberal values you mentioned shared by different parts of the Israeli population, in particular with an Oriental background? And
so one question at a time, so we all remember. Okay. So first of all, everything that you are doing is already helping. As I said, this is a global. It's a global international problem that we are facing. So it has to be fought back by the entire world. And it's a global Jewish problem because, when people dream about Israel, when people think about sending their kids to, a Taglit program, they have in mind a concept of what Israel is all about. And all of it is under threat right now. Okay, Israel is a piece of land which we all love and want to live at, but it's also a set of values. And the transition that we may be, that we are, under the threat of undergoing, will change the set of values into something that I think the majority of Jewish world, not just the progressive part, but also the Orthodox part, cannot relate to, because these are not, if I may, and I am, I heard it from many people that I trust. These are not Jewish values, what they are promoting here. If you go and you read these 225 different laws and you interpret them and try to draw a picture of what would Israel look like if those laws will pass, and this is their intention. They did not put this law just for fun. It's really their intention. And if you digest the meaning of this law in terms of what Israel would look like, you understand that this is not what you have in mind. This is not a place where you would like to send your kids to. This is not a place where I will be able to probably live or raise my kids. So we are fighting for, this piece of land, but for the values it represents as Jewish people, and as just normal people, I would say. It's that yeah. So this was the one question.
Yeah.
Be with
to what
us.
extent? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm saying be with us, stand with us, talk about, those things, explain to those who does not understand that that supporting Israel these days, meaning supporting the pro-democracy movement. This is Israel. We are 80% roughly of the population who wants Israel as you believe in, and supporting Israel these days means supporting the protest movement.
Shell is asking if you think the pro-democracy movement has also revived the movement for ending of occupation and restarting the peace process, or there is a potential to do so.
So I think, as I said, I started by saying that what we see in Israel is the same process that happened in different places in the world ahead of us. And those places do not have the Palestinian problem or the occupation problem. So I don't think that but I also said that what we see here is embedded within the Israeli circumstances, and the Palestinian problem is one of them. I'm saying that because this is why I think, because we have seen this transition in too many places that doesn't have the Palestinian problem, I think that it's not really linked, although without the Palestinian problem, likewise without the super extremist Jewish Orthodox communities that we have and we neglected for too many years, likewise the problem that we have with the geographical periphery, which has less advanced education and so on. So everything that we have neglected in the past as a country is now turned against us and take part, is a leg on which this coup relies on. And if you take out any of this leg, we will probably wouldn't have been in this situation. So I don't know which problem we will, once we win, which problem we will try to tackle, but it's clear that every single thing that we have neglected as a country, as liberal community, is now turned against us, for good reason, and everything relates to everything, basically.
You mentioned more than 200 laws being proposed. Can you give some specific example of the problematic one?
Sure. First of all, there is a nice website called Dictatura Point Today, and then there is also an English version of it in the same domain, and you can see all the list. There are about 80 different laws that deals with degrading the checks and balances, basically degrading the ability of the judiciary system to balance decisions taken by the government. And then there are also about 30 laws, I think, that deals with basically ruining the free election in Israel. One of them is, we have here a committee that can disregard parties from running in the elections, from being elected. And what they want, and right now this committee is, first of all, it has Supreme Court judge as its chair, and also decision taken by this committee. One can file a suit for the Supreme Court if the decision that it takes does not make sense, or is it, and what they want is to change it completely. So to put in the chair position someone from their own, the committee will be elected by basically the coalition, and you will not be able to address the Supreme Court if its decision is unaccepted, meaning that they can decide tomorrow that they rule out and do not let, for instance, Arab parties to participate in the election, and then basically you cannot do anything. And if they go in this direction, then they simply control the results of the election. And if you compare it, for instance, to Hungary, you'll go and see that that Orban did something very similar in a different way, but he achieved the same. So this is one example. Another example is that they want to just give an extra 12 seats in the Knesset for the coalition, meaning that basically we'll never be able to dismiss the parliament. They will rule forever, and then they can pass a law. And these laws, you know, they are on the parliament desk. They are at some level of pushing forward. There are laws that put basically free media, destroy free media, and put it under the full control of the government. Again, very similar to acts taken by Orban, and also in Poland and Turkey, obviously. So I'm not talking about all the laws that degrade human rights, give more power to ultra-Orthodox groups and ultra-Orthodox judicial system, which has nothing to do with liberal values. It's all there. The crazy thing is that you don't need to guess. Their plan is just out there. Just read read the laws and imagine, and then believe that what you are reading is their work plan, because what we are reading is their work plan. And I found it that the hardest thing for people to digest is, you know, when things are so clear, to just believe that this is their plan. I think that we have, you know, as humankind, this you know, we cannot digest such a tremendous threat. So we prefer to say, no, they're not going to do that. But they are going to do that. Otherwise, those laws would have never been placed on the parliament desk, and they are all there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shikma, Tad is asking if Israel in the first 75 years had not made an effort to create a constitution. Perhaps is this the problem that create this situation? Will Israel even get a constitution or some form of more structural government, a solution?
So I think, again, also by judging from other countries, there are tons of different ways to implement democracy. There are different ways to create checks and balances. Constitution is one of them. On the other hand, North Korea, I heard, has the most liberal constitution ever. And still we cannot think of North Korea as a democratic country. Eventually, it's a full set of, it's like a complete judicial system that you have to look at as a global thing and understand whether your system gives sufficient checks and balances such that no authority can gain too much power over the others. I think that one of the difficulties that we are facing, that whatever they do is they're always saying, okay, it's only one law that we are changing, and fine, we can live without, I don't know, resemblance cause, because other democratic countries do not have that, which is true. But if you try to fight without taking the full picture into account, I think that the scientific literature defined is that then you will create what they call like a Frankenstein democracy, meaning that you take all kind of stuff. Each one of them, could live fine in a democratic country, but the global creature is a Frankenstein one, and it has nothing to do with a democracy anymore. So it's not just about having a constitution, but it's also about having the right people, not the right people from the point of view of people who think like myself, but people with democratic culture to read and to interpret this constitution. And it's an entire system. And as I said, there are different ways to implement checks and balances. Each one is worth considering. I don't think that what we have at the moment is the best solution, but I certainly know that if you read these 225 different laws and if you follow the reasoning behind them, the end point is certainly not a democracy.
Mm-hmm. Here we have a question from Michael Laufer saying that the supporters of the coalition continue to argue that they are representing the majority of the Israel population as evidenced by the last election. They argue that the opposition needs to recognize this reality and cannot dictate to the majority. You can help to explain why this is a fictitious argument?
Yeah, in so many different ways. First of all, the simplest one, none of the Israeli government in the last, I think, 2 decades completed its days. You know, in a democratic country, the government takes its legitimacy from the people, and once it loses it, then the government falls, and it happened in Israel all the time. So so this time it just happened very early, but there is nothing unique in what we are seeing in this respect. Second, of course, is if you look at all the democracies that are no longer democracy, you will see that the government won the first elections properly. And then they used the power that they got to change the structure completely. As Jewish, with our history, I don't think that I need to mention another country where the government was elected democratically and then used its power to create something which is a completely different thing. And if you want, you can also look at every poll today. Less than 20% of the Israeli population support the action of the government, and less than 25% of the people think that this government should stand still. And even if these polls are 100% wrong, we still have a vast majority of people who think that this government is not legitimate. So to me, I just think that, winning an election and having a majority does not give you rights to degrade human rights and to change the constitutional structure. And by itself, it's sufficient. And those who do not understand that just need to read some history books.
Mm-hmm. Sue is sharing with us that the news of the dictatorship is a WhatsApp group that follows the Knesset daily decision that undermine democracy. This is the reference that you gave us?
Again, what?
The dictatorship WhatsApp group is WhatsApp that share and follows the Knesset daily decision that undermine democracy. I don't know if this is exactly what.
No, I don't know this.
The reference. Okay.
No, I don't know this group. I think that the reference I saw that someone pasted it in the chat box. It's called dictatura.today.
Okay.
Right. Someone I think pasted it.
Okay. That is exactly what Shudi is asking the reference to follow up.
Yeah.
And
dictatura.today. Yeah.
Okay. And Peter is sharing with us that the recent religion and state survey by Hidush showed that the great majority of Israelis opposed to the judicial reform, and there are a clear majority that support the diaspora raising its voice. You can share with us something about how you saw your vision about religion and state in Israel?
My personal opinion about religion and state in Israel? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that, the reason that we are in Israel is because of our Jewish history. We are all Jewish by, basically, even if we didn't choose to be one, we are just one. So I think that Israel must stay a Jewish and a democratic country. It's the core of our joint existence and the basic reason for supporting the creation and the continuation of Israel as we know it. So I think that I think that we should, though, stick to the values of the Declaration of Independence. So we can read it through because I really relate to what is written there. So we are here for historical relation and reasons. But we also need to guarantee a country that will work for the benefit of all people, regardless of gender, sex, religious, and so on. It has to be based on values like equality, like freedom, human rights, and so on. This is how I see it, and therefore I think that if you look at these 225 different laws, you will see about 40 of them that give extra power to Jewish Orthodox system. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think it will deteriorate the liberal and democratic values of Israel just by definition, and the way that unfortunately the way that the Jewish Orthodox communities behave in Israel, which is, by the way, very different compared to how they are embedded in other countries. So I think that we need to change that. I don't think it works for the benefit of the people here.
Okay. Really, we want to thank you the opportunity. There are more questions, but like we said in the beginning, for us, this is a window opportunity to be in contact and to keep going together, not only this webinar and this open conversation that you share your role model and your vision. It's the end. It's exactly the opposite. It's the way that we want really to share with all of our regional leaders in our global movement, how we can really be useful and be together with all of you to say that you are not alone. And now we really want to invite Ben Rabinovich, that is on the Zoom, to share the closing message with all of us. Thank you, Ben, for being here.
Okay, sure. Thanks so much. And can you hear me okay? You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes? So first, I want to thank everyone for joining. And I want to thank Shikma for participating and sharing. I think it's really important, like, just to emphasize a couple of points that she mentioned. And I think part of the things that Jews around the world struggled with is switching from trying to just support the Israeli government, when supporting Israel was supporting the Israeli government, understand that we have to transition to supporting the Israeli people. When only 19% of the country is supporting this judicial overhaul and severe weakening of democracy, that we really need, one of the things that we really needed over the last few months is really the hug from the Jewish community around the world to say that, you're with us. Because we're truly fighting not just democracy under threat in Israel, democracy is under threat all over the world, and Israel actually is the inspiration to really be a light unto nations, to show that you can fight back, and you can really see that there's a strong consensus within people that want to support, democracy, and that's really important. It's really also to just emphasize the incredible work that Shikma has done. I mean, from my perspective, Shikma is like the Martin Luther King of our generation for the Jewish community. And, we're close to now 40 weeks of, just so you understand what life like is in Israel. Like I run a venture capital fund, part of the startup nation genre. But every free moment is that we have when we're not working and taking care of our kids is what do we need to do to protect the country. So that means not only hundreds of thousands of people protesting every Saturday night for the last close to 40 weeks, but we're out there on a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Thursday because something else is happening that is so severe and so important that we must show, that we're out there in the streets. So it's a full-time battle by a lot of, by a lot of Israelis. I think at one point, a few weeks ago, it said that 20% of all Israelis had been at protests. It's probably in the 30%, these days. That's like
I think it's the literature deals with protest worldwide, talks about 3.5% of the population, like as a key number, and we have more than 22% of the population actively participating at least once in the protest,
right,
with more than 2.2 million unique individuals, and if you count them, those who participate more than once, more than 10 million. These are unprecedented by scale, duration, creativity, whatever. Yeah, sorry, Ben.
Yeah, and I think what you need to see is that we have a jewel in our hands. I mean, Israel is truly a miracle. I mean, the way we've become, the innovation hub of the world alongside Silicon Valley, the way we've built an Air Force and an Army and an intelligence agencies that are, the best in the world, the way we've protected the country, the incredible academic research. So everything from, you could think of the most, from finding cures to cancer to best cybersecurity solutions to, all dealing with climate change. I mean, Israel's at the forefront of all these areas. This really tiny, small country of 9 million people that represents, hardly anything of the world, has such a huge impact on the world. And I think we're just showing it again with being out in the streets. So we have a great jewel. And I think from a Reform Jewish standpoint, we know that it's got to be very frustrating to all of you that the one place where Reform Judaism really doesn't have full freedom is actually in Israel itself, where the rabbis don't have the same rights as the rabbis of the Orthodox. But what I can tell you is, if you don't really back us on this, and we don't work hand in hand in this, a lot of your kids or your, the people in your synagogues, their children may no longer be recognized as Jews the way that they are recognized today as Jews inside of Israel. Any dream of a Reform rabbi one day doing a wedding in Israel and it being recognized by the state will be much further away than where we are today. So I think we have really the opportunity to, if we protect democracy, we share the values that a lot of you have, a lot of the progressive values. There's also, I think, a lot of hope for the reform movement as well to really be able to get more rights and more credibility inside the country as well. So I really think we're all in this together. The last piece I'd say is, when you look at the people that are protesting, on one hand, you should know, like Shikma said, it's all aspects. So it's, first of all, if you look at every ex-leader of the Mossad, almost every ex-leader of the Shabak, every ex-leader of the Army, Air Force, police, attorney generals, Bank of Israel, they're all against this legislation. So it isn't like there's a split or uncertainty among those that have led the most important institutions in Israel in the past. They're unanimous almost that this judicial overhaul must come to an end. Democracy must be protected. And then the last piece really is, if you want to know what the glue is going to be between the Jewish community and Israel, people that are protesting are about inclusion, about supporting rights for whether you're gay or straight, religious, not religious. And that's really much more in line with, especially with like progressive Jews that are in the US, that are a lot of the people in your synagogues or around the world. We share these values, and we just got to work together. And I think in terms of helping, first of all, knowing that you're with us is really important. Making sure government officials understand that they can support Israel, the people, that goes against a government that does not represent the values of the people is okay. And then, of course, your support. Shikma is leading a very important movement to strengthen opinion leaders and get to all kinds of communities to understand the importance of democracy. And there's a lot of really good organizations to support. So I really encourage you to find what you're comfortable doing and helping us and supporting us, in so many ways. Thanks. So that's what I had to say. So.
Thank you, and thank everyone. Andrew?
Please, thank you, everyone. Really good to be with you.
חתימה טובה.
חתימה טובה לכולכם. גמר חתימה טובה.